The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and terrors beyond imagination. Among its countless stars and civilizations, there existed a realm known as Etherian Prime, a world of crystalline spires that glimmered like diamonds under twin suns. It was a place where beauty and perfection were worshipped above all else. Every structure, every being, seemed sculpted by the hand of divine artistry. To be considered worthy in this society meant adhering to strict ideals of symmetry, elegance, and grace. But amidst this glittering utopia stood humanity, an anomaly, a species so different from the rest of the galaxy that they were often dismissed as primitive relics. Humans had joined the Interstellar Alliance decades ago, hoping to prove themselves among the great races. Yet here, on Etherian Prime, they were seen as little more than curiosities, short-lived, fragile creatures, whose emotions ran wild and whose technology lagged far behind their alien counterparts. They were tolerated only because of their tenacity in battle, which made them useful cannon fodder against threats too dangerous for civilized beings to handle. One such threat loomed over the galaxy now: the Vorthok swarm. These insectoid invaders traveled from planet to planet, consuming resources and leaving devastation in their wake. Entire worlds had fallen to their relentless hunger, and no single race could stand against them alone. Desperate, the Etherians called upon the Interstellar Alliance for aid. On humanity answered the call. A battalion of human soldiers, led by Captain Elias Drake, was deployed to defend the outer colonies of Etherian space. Armed with crude but effective weapons and driven by sheer determination, these humans fought valiantly alongside their alien allies. Though outnumbered and outgunned, they held the line time and again, buying precious moments for evacuations and strategic retreats. Their courage earned reluctant respect from some quarters, though many still viewed them as expendable tools rather than equals. After months of grueling warfare, the tide finally turned. The combined forces of the Alliance managed to push the Vorthok swarm back into deep space, securing a fragile victory. Exhausted but triumphant, the surviving soldiers returned to Etherian Prime to receive honors for their service. For most races, this ceremony would have been a formal affair, a chance to bask in glory and celebrate unity. But for humanity, it felt more like an obligation, a way for the Zithians to acknowledge their contribution without truly embracing them. The grand amphitheater of Zenthrall Palace stretched endlessly before them, its translucent walls refracting light into dazzling rainbows. Alien dignitaries filled the audience, their forms ranging from serpentine to avian, each exuding an aura of regality. At the center of the stage sat the royal family of House Cytheria, their shimmering bodies radiating an otherworldly glow. Beside them stood rows of princesses, daughters of the royal bloodline, each more exquisite than the last. Their flawless features and ornate attire left no doubt about their status as paragons of beauty. Captain Elias Drake stood stiffly at attention, his uniform battered and stained from months of combat. His face bore the scars of war, both physical and emotional. He glanced at his fellow soldiers, who shifted uncomfortably under the weight of so much alien scrutiny. This wasn't just a reward ceremony. It was a spectacle, a reminder of how small humanity was in the grand scheme of things. When the time came for the humans to choose their rewards, Elias stepped forward reluctantly. According to Zetherian tradition, the bravest warriors were allowed to select one of the royal princesses as a companion, or a Leia gesture meant to symbolize unity between species. Most humans chose based on appearance, opting for the most radiant or enchanting princess available. After all, who wouldn't want to align themselves with such perfection? But when Elias's turn arrived, he hesitated. His eyes scanned the lineup of princesses, lingering not on the dazzling beauties, but on a figure standing slightly apart from the others. Her name was Neres, and she looked nothing like her siblings. Her skin was mottled gray, uneven, and rough, while her oversized eyes seemed almost too large for her face. Her limbs were awkwardly proportioned, and her presence lacked the ethereal charm that defined the rest of her family. The crowd murmured in disbelief as Elias pointed to Neres. "I choose her," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Gasps echoed throughout the amphitheater. Some aliens laughed nervously, assuming it was a joke. Others exchanged horrified glances, wondering if the human captain had insulted the royal family. Even Neres appeared taken aback, her wide eyes locking onto Elias with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Before anyone could react further, Neres leaned closer to Elias, her voice barely audible over the growing commotion. "You've chosen wisely, though you do not yet know why." Her words sent a shiver down Elias's spine. What did she mean? Why had he chosen her, and what secrets lay hidden beneath her unusual appearance? As the ceremony dissolved into chaos, one thing became clear: Elias's decision had set something extraordinary in motion, something that would change not only his life but the fate of the galaxy itself. Elias's choice of Princess Neres sent shockwaves through the grand amphitheater of Zenthrall Palace. The murmurs that had begun as whispers soon erupted into a cacophony of disbelief, outrage, and even mockery. For the Zetherians, who prided themselves on their beauty and perfection, Elias's decision was not just surprising, it was an affront to their values. How could a human, already considered inferior, dare to insult their royal family by choosing the ugliest princess? Nerys herself seemed frozen in place, her oversized eyes wide with astonishment. She stared at Elias as though trying to decipher his intentions. Was this some cruel joke? A clumsy attempt to rebel against the ceremony? Or something else entirely? Her expression shifted subtly from confusion to something harder to define, perhaps curiosity, perhaps resolve. The tension in the room grew palpable. Queen Valithra, the matriarch of House Zytheria, rose gracefully from her throne. Her voice, melodic yet sharp, cut through the noise like a blade. Captain Drake, she said, her tone icy but controlled, you have made an unusual choice. Are you certain of your decision? Elias met her gaze without flinching. Despite being surrounded by towering luminous aliens whose very presence exuded power, he stood firm. He nodded once. I am. The queen's lips pressed into a thin line, her displeasure evident. But before she could respond further, Nerys stepped forward, her movements awkward yet deliberate. Mother, she began, her voice trembling slightly but carrying enough authority to silence the room. If Captain Drake has chosen me, then I will honor the tradition. Let us proceed. Her words stunned everyone even Elias. No one expected Nerys to accept the situation so calmly, let alone volunteer to uphold the ancient custom. There was a quiet strength in her demeanor, a resilience that hinted at depths far beyond her unremarkable exterior. As the formalities concluded, Elias found himself escorted to a private chamber within the palace, where Nerys awaited him. The room was adorned with intricate carvings and glowing crystals that cast soft light across the walls. It felt almost serene compared to the chaos of the ceremony. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Elias studied Nerys carefully, noting how her strange features seemed less grotesque up close. There was a kind of raw honesty in her appearance, a stark contrast to the polished facades of her siblings. Finally, he broke the silence. Why did you agree to this? He asked, his tone measured but genuine. You didn't have to. Nerys tilted her head, her large eyes studying him intently. Because it doesn't matter what they think, she replied softly. What matters is why you chose me. Her response caught Elias off guard. He hadn't expected such insight or such directness from someone who had been treated as an outcast her entire life. He hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I didn't pick you because of how you look, he admitted after a pause. I picked you because, well, because you're different. And I trust different. Nerys blinked slowly, her expression unreadable. Then, to Elias's surprise, she smiled a small crooked smile that transformed her face entirely. Different can be dangerous, she said cryptically, but it can also be powerful. Before Elias could ask what she meant, the door to the chamber slid open, and a group of Zytherian officials entered. Their expressions were grim, and their body language radiated hostility. One of them, a tall male with shimmering silver skin, addressed Elias directly. Captain Drake, your decision has caused significant unrest among our people. Many believe it reflects poorly on humanity's judgment, and on ours for allowing such a partnership. Elias bristled at the accusation but kept his composure. My decision wasn't meant to offend anyone, he replied evenly. It was based on instinct. If that's not good enough for your people, then maybe we shouldn't be part of this alliance. His words hung in the air, bold and defiant. The officials exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't anticipated such a strong reaction from a human, especially one who appeared so unassuming. Before they could respond, Nerys interjected. Enough, she said firmly, her voice echoing with unexpected authority. Captain Drake has honored our traditions. To question his motives now would dishonor us all. Her declaration silenced the officials, leaving them visibly unsettled. Clearly, they hadn't expected Nerys to defend Elias or to command such respect. After a tense moment, they bowed stiffly and exited the room, leaving Elias and Nerys alone once more. What was that about? Elias asked, turning to Nerys. Why are they so upset? Nerys sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly as if burdened by unseen weight. To them, I'm a failure, a reminder that not everything fits neatly into their ideals of beauty and perfection. By choosing me, you've highlighted their flaws, and that makes them uncomfortable. But you're not a failure, Elias said earnestly. From what I've seen so far, you're stronger than any of them realize. Nerys looked at him, her large eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Thank you for saying that, she whispered. But strength isn't always enough. Sometimes, it takes more than courage to change minds or hearts. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the palace. Alarms blared in the distance, and red warning lights bathed the room in an ominous glow. Outside, the sky darkened as massive shapes descended from orbit, the unmistakable silhouette of Vorthok's swarm ships. They're back, Elias muttered, his fists clenching involuntarily, and they're not here to negotiate. Nerys straightened, her earlier vulnerability replaced by steely determination. Then we'll fight, she declared, her voice steady. Together, as the two prepared to face the impending threat, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that Nerys knew far more than she was letting on. Her cryptic remarks, her calm acceptance of his choice, her sudden display of leadership, Paul pointed to secrets hidden beneath her unassuming exterior. Whatever those secrets were, Elias realized, they might hold the key to survival not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. The Vorthok swarm descended upon Zetherian Prime like a storm of darkness, their massive ships blotting out the twin suns and casting long shadows over the crystalline spires. The once pristine cityscape now trembled under the weight of an impending invasion. Panic spread through the streets as civilians scrambled for shelter, while soldiers scrambled to defend their world. For the Zetherians, who had always relied on their advanced technology and superior intellect, this sudden return of the swarm felt like a nightmare come true. Elias and Neres stood side by side in the palace's war room, surrounded by frantic alien commanders barking orders and analyzing data streams. Holographic maps flickered above the table, showing the swarm's rapid advance. Despite the chaos, Elias remained calm, his eyes scanning the projections with a soldier's focus. He had faced the Vorthok before, and knew their tactics relentless, overwhelming, and devoid of mercy. But something about this attack felt different, more calculated, more personal. "What's the plan?" Elias asked, turning to the nearest Zetherian officer. The alien hesitated, clearly unaccustomed to taking advice or even questions from a human. Finally, he gestured toward the hologram. "We are deploying our fleet to intercept them at the outer perimeter. Our defenses will hold." Elias frowned. "Your fleet is already stretched thin after the last battle. If they breach your lines, you'll have nothing left to protect the capital." The officer bristled at the critique but couldn't deny its truth. Before he could respond, Neres stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "He's right," she said firmly. "The swarm isn't here to negotiate, they're here to destroy. We need a new strategy." Her words drew sharp looks from the other Zetherians. Though she was royalty, Neres had rarely been taken seriously in military matters. Yet there was no mistaking the authority in her tone now. She turned to Elias, her oversized eyes locking onto his. "What would you do?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Divide and conquer. Hit them where they least expect it. Their ships are heavily armored, but their landing pods are vulnerable. If we can disable enough of those, we can slow their advance and buy time to regroup." Neres nodded thoughtfully. "And if we strike from multiple angles, they won't know which direction to defend against." One of the Zetherian generals scoffed. "Humans rely too much on chaos and unpredictability. Order and precision are what win wars." Elias shot him a wry grin. "Order and precision got you overrun last time. Maybe it's time to try something different." To everyone's surprise, Neres backed him up. "Let's give Captain Drake command of a strike team. He knows the swarm better than any of us." The suggestion sparked immediate protests. A human leading an elite Zetherian unit. It was unheard of, almost sacrilegious. But Neres held her ground, her quiet confidence silencing the dissenters one by one. Eventually, the queen herself intervened, her voice ringing with finality. "My daughter speaks wisely. Let the human prove himself or fail trying." With that, Elias found himself at the helm of a small but formidable squad composed of both humans and Zetherians. They were tasked with infiltrating the swarm's landing zone and disabling as many pods as possible before retreating. It was a suicide mission by most standards, but Elias didn't care. He had faced worse odds before and survived. As they prepared for deployment, Neres pulled Elias aside. Her expression was unreadable, though her large eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "Be careful," she said softly. "There's more at stake here than just this battle." "What do you mean?" Elias asked, his brow furrowing. Before she could answer, an explosion rocked the palace, sending shards of crystal raining down around them. The swarm had breached the atmosphere. Time was running out. The mission began under cover of darkness. With Elias's team slipping through the outskirts of the battlefield undetected, the Vorthok's insectoid drones scuttled across the landscape like mechanical locusts, their glowing red eyes scanning for targets. The air buzzed with the hum of alien machinery, a constant reminder of the enemy's overwhelming numbers. Elias led the way, his movements precise and deliberate. He signaled for his team to split into smaller groups, each targeting a different cluster of landing pods. The Zetherian soldiers followed his lead without question, their earlier skepticism replaced by grudging respect. Even amidst the chaos, Elias's calm demeanor inspired trust. But as they neared their objective, something unexpected happened. One of the Zetherian soldiers, a young male named Kale, froze mid-step, his weapon trembling in his hands. I can't do this," he stammered, his voice cracking. "It's too much." Elias knelt beside him, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Hey, look at me. You've trained for this. You're not alone, we're in this together. Just focus on the next step, okay?" Kale hesitated, then nodded slowly. Whatever fear had gripped him seemed to loosen slightly, enough for him to regain his composure. Elias gave him a reassuring pat before signaling the team to move forward. When they reached the first pod, Elias devised a quick plan. Using improvised explosives crafted from scavenged materials, they managed to disable the vessel just as a swarm of drones descended upon them. Chaos erupted as laser fire lit up the night sky, forcing the team to take cover behind jagged rocks. The Zetherians fought valiantly, their energy weapons slicing through the enemy ranks, but it wasn't enough. The drones kept coming, relentless and unyielding. That's when Elias did something unexpected. Instead of retreating, he charged straight into the fray, shouting for his team to follow. His reckless bravery caught the Zetherians off guard, but it also ignited something within them. Inspired by his audacity, they rallied behind him, fighting with a ferocity none of them realized they possessed. In the heat of the moment, Elias noticed something peculiar about the drones. Their movements weren't entirely random. There was a pattern to how they coordinated their attacks. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it gave him an idea. "Aim for the center," he yelled. "Take out their leader." The team obeyed, concentrating their fire on a larger drone directing the others. With a deafening blast, the creature exploded, causing the remaining drones to falter and scatter. The victory was short-lived, however, as reinforcements arrived moments later. Despite the odds, Ilias's team managed to disable several more pods before being forced to retreat. As they regrouped at a safe distance, exhausted but triumphant, the Zetherians stared at Ilias with newfound admiration. What had started as reluctant cooperation had transformed into genuine camaraderie. Back at the palace, Neres greeted them with a mixture of relief and pride. "You did it," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "You showed them what humanity is capable of." Elias shook his head modestly. "We couldn't have done it without your people. This was a team effort." Neres smiled faintly, but her expression soon grew serious. "There's still more to come," she warned. "The swarm isn't here just to conquer. They're searching for something powerful, and I think I know what it is." Her cryptic words sent a chill down Elias's spine. Whatever secrets Neres carried, they were beginning to unravel. Elias had a feeling they would change everything. The aftermath of the strike team's success was a brief but hard-earned reprieve. The disabled landing pods had slowed the Vorthok swarm's advance, giving Zetherian forces precious time to regroup and reinforce their defenses. Yet, despite this small victory, the atmosphere in Zenthral Palace remained tense. The swarm's relentless assault showed no signs of abating, and their true intentions, whatever they were, remained shrouded in mystery. Elias stood on one of the palace's observation decks, gazing out at the battlefield below. Fires raged across the landscape, casting an eerie orange glow over the shattered remains of once beautiful spires. The air was thick with smoke and ash, a grim reminder of how quickly perfection could be reduced to ruin. Behind him, Neres approached silently, her uneven footsteps barely audible against the hum of distant explosions. "You're worried," she said softly, joining him at the edge of the platform. Elias glanced at her, his expression weary but resolute. "We bought some time, but it's not enough. The swarm isn't here just to destroy. They're after something specific. And if we don't figure out what that is, we're all dead." Neres nodded slowly, her oversized eyes reflecting the flames below. "You're right. They're searching for an artifact, an ancient relic hidden deep within the royal archives. It's called the Prism of Aetheris." "The what?" Elias asked, turning fully toward her now. "The Prism of Aetheris," Neres repeated. "It's said to hold immense power, capable of reshaping reality itself. My ancestors discovered it centuries ago but chose to seal it away, fearing its potential for destruction. If the swarm gets their hands on it, they'll use it to wipe out entire civilizations." Elias finished grimly. "Why didn't anyone tell me about this sooner?" "Because it's forbidden knowledge," Neres admitted, her voice tinged with guilt. "Only members of the royal family are allowed to know about the prism, and, even then, most of us aren't told until we ascend to the throne. I only learned about it recently, because my mother thought I might need to protect it someday." Elias stared at her, piecing together the implications. "That's why you agreed to come with me, so icily back at the ceremony. You knew there was more to this than just tradition." "Yes," Neres confessed. "When you chose me, I saw it as a sin, a chance to step into a role I'd been preparing for without realizing it. But I never imagined the swarm would return so soon." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of Neres's revelation settled heavily between them. Elias understood now why she had seemed so composed despite the chaos around them. She wasn't just an outsider among her own people. She was a guardian, entrusted with protecting something far greater than herself. "So what do we do now?" Elias asked finally. "If the swarm finds the prism, it's game over. We stop them," Neres replied firmly. "But we can't do it alone. We'll need help, and not just from soldiers. This is going to take strategy, ingenuity, and trust." Later that evening, Elias and Neres convened with Queen Velithra and a select group of advisors in the palace's war room. Holographic projections displayed maps of the city, highlighting key locations where the swarm was concentrating its forces. At the center of it all was the royal archive, a towering structure surrounded by layers of security protocols. "The swarm will breach our outer defenses within hours," one of the generals reported. "Once they reach the archive, it's only a matter of time before they find the prism." Queen Velithra turned to Neres, her gaze sharp yet tinged with regret. "Daughter, you must decide whether to destroy the prism or risk using its power. Against them, either choice comes with great peril." Neres hesitated, clearly torn. Destroying the prism would eliminate the threat, but it would also erase a piece of Zetherian history forever. Using its power, on the other hand, could turn the tide of the battle, but at what cost? Before she could respond, Elias stepped forward. There's another option, he said, drawing everyone's attention. We lure the swarm into a trap, make them think they've won access to the prism, but instead, we hit them with everything we've got while they're distracted. The room fell silent as his words sank in. One of the advisors scoffed. A diversion, that's reckless. What makes you think it will work? It worked earlier today, Elias countered. When we took out those landing pods, we caught them off guard because they underestimated us. Let's do it again but bigger this time. Neres looked at him, her expression thoughtful. He's right. The swarm relies on brute force and predictability. If we can disrupt their patterns, we might stand a chance. Queen Valithra studied both of them for a long moment before nodding reluctantly. Very well. Prepare your plan, Captain Drake. And Neres, stay close to him. Your knowledge of the prism may prove invaluable. As the meeting dispersed, Elias and Neres began coordinating with the remaining human and Zetherian forces. They devised a multi-layered strategy. Decoy teams would draw the swarm toward the archive, while demolition squads planted explosives along critical routes. Meanwhile, elite strike units, including Elias and Neres themselves, would infiltrate the enemy ranks and sabotage their command structures. The operation launched under cover of darkness, with the decoy teams executing a series of calculated feints designed to mislead the swarm. Flares lit up the sky, drawing hordes of insectoid drones away from the main force. Explosions echoed through the streets as demolition charges detonated, collapsing bridges and sealing off escape routes. At the heart of the chaos, Elias and Neres led their strike unit through the ruins of the city. Their mission was simple yet perilous. Disable the swarm's central hive mind node, a massive organic construct pulsating with bioelectric energy. Without it, the drones would lose cohesion, leaving them vulnerable to attack. Reaching the node required navigating a labyrinth of tunnels teeming with enemies. Every step felt like walking through a nightmare. The walls slick with alien slime and the air thick with the stench of decay. Yet Elias pressed onward, his determination unwavering. Beside him, Neres moved with surprising agility, her awkward limbs proving surprisingly effective in tight spaces. When they finally reached the node, Elias hesitated. This thing looks alive, he muttered, eyeing the writhing mass of tendrils and glowing veins. How do we shut it down? Neres pulled a small device from her belt, a crystalline shard etched with intricate runes. With this, she said, it's a resonance dampener. It should disrupt the node's frequency long enough for us to destroy it. But it's dangerous, isn't it? Elias asked, noting the way her hands trembled slightly. Yes, Neres admitted. If I get too close, it could kill me. Then let me do it, Elias insisted. No, Neres said firmly. This is my responsibility. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Before Elias could argue further, Neres activated the dampener and stepped into the fray. The node reacted violently, lashing out with electrified tendrils that crackled with energy. Sparks flew as Neres dodged and weaved, her movements precise and deliberate. Finally, with a final surge of effort, she plunged the dampener into the core. The resulting explosion sent a shockwave rippling through the tunnels, knocking Elias off his feet. When the dust settled, he scrambled to Neres' side, finding her lying motionless amidst the wreckage. For a moment, his heart stopped, but then she stirred, coughing weakly. I told you, I'd handle it, she rasped, managing a faint smile. Elias helped her to her feet, relief washing over him. Yeah, but next time, let me take the fall for a change. As they made their way back to safety, the effects of their actions became clear. The swarm's drones faltered and collapsed, their hive minds severed across the battlefield. Zetherian forces rallied, pushing the invaders back toward their ships. Victory was still far from certain, but for the first time, hope flickered in the hearts of those who fought. In that moment, something shifted, not just in the tide of the battle, but in the way the Zetherians viewed humanity. Elias's courage, ingenuity, and willingness to sacrifice himself had earned their respect, and Neres, once dismissed as an outcast, had proven herself to be a leader worthy of admiration. As dawn broke over the battered city, Elias and Neres stood together, watching the remnants of the swarm retreat into space. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they faced them just as allies, but as friends. The retreat of the Vorthok swarm was short. Though Elias and Neres' sabotage had dealt a significant blow to their forces, the invaders quickly regrouped, their hive mind adapting to the loss of their central node. Within hours, new waves of drones descended upon Zetherian Prime, more aggressive and coordinated than ever before. It was clear that the swarm wasn't going to give up, not until they claimed the Prism of Etheris. The battered city braced itself for another assault, its once brilliant spires now reduced to jagged ruins. The air crackled with tension as soldiers prepared for what would likely be their final stand. Supplies were dwindling, morale was fraying, and exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone's shoulders. Yet amidst the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of unity, a shared determination to protect not just their world, but the galaxy itself. Elias stood in the war room alongside Neres, poring over holographic maps and battle reports. His face was streaked with soot, his uniform torn and bloodied from days of relentless fighting. Despite his weariness, his eyes burned with resolve. We've hit them hard, he said, pointing to areas where their earlier efforts had succeeded. But they're learning. They'll adapt again if we don't finish this now. Neres nodded grimly. They're close to breaching the archive. Once they do, it won't matter how many drones we take down, they'll have what they came for. Queen Valithra entered the room, her shimmering form radiating both grace and urgency. She addressed the assembled commanders, her voice steady but tinged with desperation. The time has come to make our final move. If the swarm reaches the prism, all will be lost. We must hold them at any cost. Elias turned to her, his expression firm. Your Majesty, holding them isn't enough. We need to destroy the prism, ourselves before they can get to it. The suggestion drew sharp gasps from the advisors. Destroying such a powerful artifact was unthinkable to most Ethereans, who viewed it as a sacred relic of their history. But Neres stepped forward, her voice cutting through the murmurs. He's right, she said. The prism is too dangerous to leave intact. If the swarm uses it, the consequences will be catastrophic. Queen Valithra hesitated, her gaze flickering between her daughter and Elias. Finally, she sighed deeply, resignation etched into her features. Very well. Prepare the archive for demolition. But no, it may require a sacrifice greater than any of us anticipated. As preparations began, Elias and Neres led a small team into the heart of the royal archive. The structure was ancient, its towering walls inscribed with glowing runes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. At its center lay the prism of Aetheris, suspended within a crystalline chamber that hummed with latent energy. The sight of it sent shivers down Ilias's spine. Even dormant, the artifact exuded an aura of raw power. This thing feels alive, Elias muttered, keeping his voice low as they approached the chamber. Are you sure destroying it won't cause? I don't know, some kind of cosmic meltdown? Neres gave him a wry smile, though her eyes betrayed her unease. That's why we're setting charges around the perimeter. If everything goes according to plan, the explosion will contain the energy release. But she paused, glancing at him meaningfully. If something goes wrong, we might not get out of here. Elias met her gaze, his expression unwavering. Then let's make sure it doesn't. Their work was interrupted by the sound of distant explosions. The swarm had breached the outer defenses of the archive. Time was running out. While the rest of the team set explosives, Elias and Neres stayed behind to ensure the prism remained secure. As they worked, Neres confided something that had been weighing on her mind. There's something I haven't told you, she admitted quietly. The prism isn't just a weapon, it's also a key to another dimension. My ancestors sealed it away not only because of its destructive potential, but because it opens a gateway to places no one should go. Why does that sound like bad news? Elias asked dryly. It is, Neres replied. If the swarm activates the prism, they could unleash horrors beyond imagination. That's why we can't let them succeed. Before Elias could respond, alarms blared throughout the archive. The swarm had breached the inner sanctum, their drones swarming toward the chamber. Elias grabbed Neres's arm, pulling her behind cover as laser fire erupted around them. Looks like they're here for the party, he quipped, raising his weapon. The ensuing firefight was chaotic and brutal. The drones advanced relentlessly, their glowing red eyes fixed on the prism. Elias and Neres fought side by side, their movements synchronized despite the chaos. Each shot fired, each dodge made, brought them closer to the edge of survival and failure. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, reinforcements arrived. A group of Zetherian soldiers led by Kale, the young male who had faltered during the earlier mission. Now, however, he fought with fierce determination, his actions inspired by Ilias's earlier encouragement. Together, the combined human and alien forces managed to push the swarm back temporarily, buying precious seconds to complete their task. With the charges set, Elias signaled for everyone to fall back. But as they turned to leave, Neres froze, her attention drawn to the prism. Its glow had intensified, bathing the chamber in an otherworldly light. It's activating, she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. They've triggered it remotely. Elias grabbed her hand, tugging her toward the exit. We don't have time for this. Let's go. No. Neres resisted, pulling free. If the gateway opens, it'll tear this planet apart. I have to shut it down manually. You'll die if you stay, Elias shouted, his voice filled with desperation. And millions will die if I don't. Neres countered, her tone resolute. Trust me, I can do this. For a moment, Elias wavered, torn between his instinct to protect her and the knowledge that she was right. Finally, he nodded, gripping her shoulder tightly. Then I'm staying with you. No, Neres said firmly. You need to get everyone out. This is my duty, not yours. Before Elias could argue further, she kissed him, a brief, unexpected gesture that left him stunned. Then she turned and ran back toward the prism, her figure illuminated by its eerie glow. As Elias fled the chamber with the others, the ground began to shake violently. Behind him, the prism pulsed with blinding light, cracks forming along its surface. He glanced back one last time, catching a glimpse of Neres standing tall amidst the chaos, her arms outstretched as she channeled her energy into containing the artifact's power. When the first explosion rocked the archive, Elias forced himself to keep moving, tears streaming down his face. He didn't know if Nereis would survive, but he knew she had given everything to save them. Moments later, a deafening roar echoed through the city as the prism detonated, sending a shockwave that obliterated the archive and scattered the remaining swarm forces. The battlefield fell silent, the invaders retreating into space. Amidst the wreckage, Elias collapsed to his knees, staring at the smoking ruins of the archive. The prism was gone, but so was Nereis, or so it seemed. The aftermath of the prism's destruction left Cytherean Prime in stunned silence. The once majestic archive was now a smoldering crater, its crystalline spires reduced to rubble. Smoke curled into the sky, mingling with the fading light of the twin suns. For Elias and the surviving soldiers, the victory felt hollow, a grim reminder of the cost of their triumph. Elias sat alone on the edge of the crater, his hands trembling as he clutched a piece of shattered crystal. His mind replayed the final moments over and over. Nereis standing tall amidst the chaos, her voice steady even as the ground shook beneath her feet. She had sacrificed herself to save them all, and though her actions had undoubtedly altered the course of history, the weight of her absence pressed heavily on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was unfinished, that there was still more to the story. As night fell, Queen Valithra approached him, her usually regal demeanor softened by grief. "Captain Drake," she said softly, sitting beside him, "you must know, my daughter's sacrifice will never be forgotten. She saved us all." Elias nodded stiffly, unable to meet her gaze. "She didn't deserve to die like that," he muttered, his voice thick with emotion. "She deserved better." Queen Valithra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm despite her alien physiology. Nereis always knew her role in this world. From the moment she was born, she carried burdens others could not, but she chose to face them, with courage and with love. Her last word lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Before Elias could respond, a faint hum interrupted the quiet. It started low, almost imperceptible, but quickly grew louder, resonating through the ruins around them. Soldiers nearby turned toward the sound, weapons raised cautiously. Even Queen Valithra stood up, her eyes widening in disbelief. From the depths of the crater emerged a figure shrouded in shimmering light, its form shifting and flickering like a mirage. As it stepped closer, the glow faded, revealing Nereis. She looked different now, her skin no longer mottled gray, her limbs perfectly proportioned, her oversized eyes replaced by ones that glowed softly with an inner radiance. She was breathtakingly beautiful, not in the superficial way her siblings were, but in a way that seemed almost otherworldly. Elias stumbled to his feet, his heart pounding. "Nereis," he whispered, unsure if what he was seeing was real or some cruel trick of his exhausted mind. "It's me," she replied, her voice melodic yet familiar. She smiled gently, taking a step toward him. "I'm changed." The soldiers gasped collectively, lowering their weapons in awe. Even Queen Valithra seemed at a loss for words, her expression a mixture of wonder and pride. "Daughter?" she finally managed, her voice trembling. "What happened to you?" Nereis glanced down at her hands, flexing them experimentally. "The prism's energy transformed me," she explained. "It wasn't just a weapon, it was a catalyst. When I tried to contain its power, it merged with me instead. I don't fully understand it myself, but—" She paused, looking around at the stunned faces surrounding her. "But I think I've become something new, something stronger." Elias took a hesitant step forward, his emotions warring between relief and disbelief. "Are you okay? Is this permanent?" "I think so," Nereis said, her glowing eyes meeting his eye. "And I believe it's part of why the swarm wanted the prism in the first place. They weren't just after its destructive capabilities, they wanted to harness its ability to transform life itself." Her revelation sent ripples of understanding through the group. The Vorthok swarm hadn't been searching for a mere tool. They had been seeking a means of evolution, a way to transcend their insectoid limitations. By destroying the prism, rather, by merging with it, Nereis had denied them that possibility. Queen Valithra stepped forward, her voice filled with reverence. "You are no longer just my daughter Nereis. You are a guardian and embodiment of the prism's legacy. Its power lives within you now, and with it comes great responsibility." Nereis nodded solemnly, accepting the mantle thrust upon her. But her gaze soon returned to Elias, softening as she reached out to take his hand. "And none of this would have been possible without you," she said quietly. "Your faith in me, your willingness to fight alongside me, it gave me the strength to face what I did." Elias squeezed her hand tightly, his throat tight with emotion. "I thought I'd lost you," he admitted. "I didn't know how I'd keep going if you were gone." "You'll never lose me," Nereis promised, her smile radiant. "Not anymore." The following days brought a profound shift in the relationship between humanity and the Zitherns. The battle against the swarm had forged bonds that transcended species, proving that unity was far stronger than division. Led by Nereis, who now served as both a symbol of hope and a bridge between worlds, the alliance began rebuilding, not just physically, but emotionally. In a grand ceremony held amidst the ruins of the archive, Nereis addressed the assembled crowd, of humans and aliens alike. "This war has shown us that our differences are not weaknesses, they are strengths," she declared, her voice carrying across the gathering. "Together, We faced an enemy that sought to destroy everything we hold dear, and together, we prevailed. Her words resonated deeply, sparking applause and cheers from those present. For the first time, humanity was no longer seen as expendable or inferior. They were equals partners whose ingenuity, resilience, and heart had proven invaluable in the fight for survival. As the ceremony concluded, Elias found himself standing beside Nereis once more, gazing out at the sea of faces before them. Looks like you're officially a hero now, he teased. Nudging her gently, Nereis chuckled, shaking her head. I didn't do it alone. None of us did. That's the lesson here. We're stronger together. Elias smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. The galaxy was still scarred by war, but it was also full of promise. With Nereis by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy began to heal in the weeks following the defeat of the Vorth swarm. The scars of war lingered, etched into the landscapes of countless worlds and the hearts of those who had fought. Yet amidst the ruins, there was a sense of renewal, a quiet hope that whispered of brighter days ahead. For Elias, Drake, and Nereis of House Cytherea, this period marked not just an end to conflict, but also the beginning of something far greater. Transformation had become legend, her radiant presence symbolizing resilience and unity across species. Where once she had been dismissed as an outcast, now she stood as a beacon of possibility, living testament to the idea that true strength lies not in perfection but in embracing one's flaws and using them to forge something extraordinary. Her bond with Elias only deepened this message, proving that connection transcended appearances, culture, or even biology. As they traveled together, visiting planets ravaged by the swarm, Nereis and Elias worked tirelessly to rebuild alliances and foster trust between humanity and the alien races. They addressed crowds of survivors, shared stories of their struggles, and listened to the hopes and fears of those still recovering from the devastation. In every interaction, Elias marveled at how Nereis carried herself not as a princess or a savior, but as someone who understood what it meant to be vulnerable yet unyielding. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of diplomatic meetings, Elias and Nereis found themselves on a secluded balcony aboard the royal flagship. Below them stretched the vast expanse of space, dotted with stars that seemed infinite in number. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken gratitude for simply being alive. You've changed, Elias said finally, breaking the quiet. Not just because of the prism but because of everything we've been through. And Nereis turned to him, her glowing eyes softening. So have you, she replied. You came here as a soldier, fighting for survival. Now you're a leader, inspiring others to believe in themselves. That's more powerful than any weapon. Elias chuckled, scratching the back of his neck awkwardly. I don't know about all that, I'm just doing what feels right. And that's exactly why people listen to you, Nereis said with a smile. You lead with your heart, not your ego. It's rare and beautiful. Her words warmed him, though he couldn't help but feel humbled. He looked out at the stars again, his thoughts drifting to Earth, the blue-green planet he had left behind so long ago. Do you think humanity will ever truly belong out here? He asked quietly. Or are we always going to be seen as outsiders? Nereis placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. You already belong, Elias. You showed the galaxy what it means to be human, to fight, to adapt, to care. Those aren't weaknesses, they're gifts. And because of you, others are starting to see that. Elias nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Prejudices ran deep, and old wounds took time to heal. But for the first time, he felt hopeful not just for himself, but for the future of his species. Their journey eventually brought them back to Cytherean Prime, where the crystalline spires had begun to rise anew from the ashes. The royal family welcomed them warmly, Queen Valithra embracing her daughter with tears in her eyes. You've brought honor to our house, she said, her voice trembling with pride, and to our people. Nereis smiled, glancing at Elias. It wasn't just me, Mother. Humanity taught us all something valuable, that beauty isn't skin, and strength isn't measured by power alone. In the days that followed, Elias found himself exploring the newly rebuilt palace, marveling at how much had changed since his arrival. What had once felt cold and alien now seemed familiar, almost homelike. He realized it wasn't the architecture or the technology that made the difference, it was the connections he'd formed, the bridges he'd helped build. On their final night before departing for Earth, Nereis led Elias to the highest tower of the palace. From there they could see the entire city bathed in starlight, its crystalline structures shimmering like jewels against the dark sky. This view reminds me of why we fight, Nereis said softly. To protect moments like this, where peace feels possible. Elias wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. And to create new ones, he added, together. As they stood there, gazing out at the endless cosmos, Elias felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The battles they had fought, the sacrifices they had made, all of it had led to this moment. Humanity wasn't perfect, nor were the Cythereans or any other race. But perhaps that was the point. Imperfection was what made them capable of growth, of love, of hope. Before leaving, Elias delivered one final speech to the assembled leaders of the Interstellar Alliance. His voice rang clear and strong, carrying the weight of experience and conviction. We may come from different worlds, speak different languages, and look different from one another, but when we stand together, we become something greater than the sum of our parts. Let this victory remind us that no challenge is insurmountable if we face it as one. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the grand hall. As Elias stepped down from the podium, Neres approached him, her smile radiant. "Well said, Captain Drake." "Thanks," he replied, grinning, "but I think the real hero here is standing next to me." They shared a laugh, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they walked toward the exit, ready to face whatever adventures lay ahead. Behind them, the galaxy continued to spin, its stars shining brightly against the void, a reminder that even in darkness, light could always be found.